Okay, we're doing it. We're talking about Creaks today because I just finished my playthrough. And I think I'm ready to give you guys my review of the game. But I feel weird calling it a review. But isn't that what every YouTuber says? Doesn't every YouTuber say, oh, I can't call it a review, I must call it a final thoughts, or I must call it a impressions video? No, I'm just gonna go ahead and call it a review for a few reasons. I feel the same way, by the way. I feel like I should not be calling this a review, but I'm gonna call it a review because this game isn't getting a lot of shine right now. It's not really, a lot of people aren't talking about this game. This is a very important game. It's coming from Amanita Design, which is a studio out of Czech Republic. It's a studio that is very important in my mind because they basically brought the point and click adventure genre to the modern age or whatever, or really to the new millennium, basically. So they're very important, and Machinarium is their main title that you keep seeing over and over again. It's been ported to everything. It's a great game. It's not my favorite Amanita game. My favorite is Samorost 3. But anyway, this is their latest game. This is their latest entry. And I'm really happy that they're still around. I'm really happy that they're still making these games. It's pretty exciting stuff for me as an Amanita stan, as the kids say. To quote 1999 Eminem for some reason. Yeah, so this is an exciting game for me to be playing right now because, again, I love Amanita. Now, this review, as I'm calling it, is I have no notes whatsoever. It is going to be very informal. I'm going to be stammering. I'm going to be yammering. And I'm going to be taking too long to finish sentences and complete my thoughts and all that good stuff. All that good, uncut, unscripted content that you guys love here on YouTube with these blah 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 long form videos that some of us make. I don't know how long form this one's going to be, by the way. But anyway, the footage that I'm showing you right now is just the trailer of the game. That's it. I didn't record any of my own footage, but the trailer gives us something to look at. So anyway, Creaks. The first thing I'll say is Amanita, basically, if you look at their timeline, they came out with 3 really big games. They came out with Machinarium in 2010, I believe, or 2009, something like that. And then they came out with Botanicula, which was amazing. Then they came out with Samorost 3. So 3 really big games, really big in scope, big in scale, and each one felt a little grander than the last one. And now, in recent years, they've started releasing much more scaled down, like very scaled down projects compared to those 3. And we've had 3 scaled down projects as of now. Chuchel, a couple years ago, and then last year we had the excellent Pilgrims, which was an hour-long game, but I really loved it. And then this year we finally have Creaks, which was originally announced like 2 years ago. So they've been working on this one for a while. This is another smaller scale game. It is not smaller in terms of like the time that you're going to spend on this game. This is a pretty average length for one of the kind of quote mainline games for Amanita, but it is smaller in scale. It is smaller in scope, even though it's technically just as long as some of the other Amanita games. The length, however, is pretty padded because, you know, it's unfortunately a lot of puzzles that are kind of look and feel the same from puzzle to puzzle, from location to location. It does not have the same sense of adventure and wonder and exploration as the previous Amanita kind of mainline entries, if you want to call them that. This game is very much stuck in between one of those mainline entries, like I said, and one of the smaller scale projects. It's kind of in the middle, and that's okay. You know, this studio put out some really high concept games that it would be tough to just recreate that year after year, project after project. So I can understand why they started to scale things down. And this is what happens when you scale things down, and it's not a bad game. It's not a bad game, but it's nowhere near the quality that we've come to know from Amanita, from their bigger projects. I think, you know, it's first of all, one of the biggest differences between this game and say a Machinarium or a Samorost 3 is that this game uses a controller. So it's designed basically to use a controller. Or I guess it's also on Apple Arcade and mobile, so you can also use like your phone's touchscreen. But it is very much around, it's not a point and click game. It is a controller based game, a controller platformer puzzle game. And that's really its downfall. I really think that the downfall here in this game is the gameplay, if I'm being honest, which is kind of what it's all about at the end of the day. But that is sort of where this one is a little bit weaker. It's not a bad game. But I think that ultimately, if you're going to play a puzzle game or a puzzle platformer game or an Amanita Design game, there's just better games to play than this. This is a new game, so people are going to be interested in it because it's a new game. If you have not played an Amanita Design game, go play Machinarium or go play Samorost 3. For my money, those are the two that are like really where it's at. This should be like 5th on the list, if I'm being honest. I think that even though it was so incredibly short, last year's Pilgrims, which was an hour long, I think that I kind of overall like that game better than this one. And that sucks to say. It really sucks to say. But okay, so here's how the gameplay works. We can see here, you have these characters, these frenemies, if you want to call them. They're these characters that you interact with, and you can't live with them, you can't live without them. They do try to kill you, they can kill you, but you also have to work with them to solve puzzles and to make it to the next room or to the next floor. So it's all platforms, it's all switches and floor plates that you activate. And that's actually like an example of one of the mini games. The mini games are actually some of the coolest parts of the game because they give you a little bit of variety. The rest of the game tends to feel a little bit on the repetitive side, just because the game looks amazing, like all Amanita games do. It has that amazing illustrative art design. I mean, look at that. How many games really look that cool? Not that many. So this game is definitely holds its own in the Amanita spectrum as a really good looking game. Excuse me. So it's great looking. The problem is these puzzles, these very platformy ladders and switches and these kind of NPC enemy things that you interact with. I mean, here you see on this screen, there's 2 dogs. These are all pieces of furniture. Basically, they go under a light, you hit a switch, the light turns on, and then when light touches these things, they become a piece of furniture. So it's all about manipulating these levels so that you can leverage these furniture pieces in different ways, whether they're moving or whether they're static, for you to be able to get around easier. So that's how the game works. And I mean, after, 6 to 8 hours of that, it can be a bit grueling. It can be a bit grueling. When I first started playing Creaks, I was like, oh, you guys are going to do this to me. This is really repetitive and not what I was hoping for right out of the gate. And so I ended up walking away from the game after just a few minutes because I was just like, I really have no desire to play this right now. But I eventually came back around. I started picking it up and playing it. One thing I'll say about Creaks is these levels, basically your gameplay in general, you don't want to just keep going and going and going. These puzzles get kind of old, they get kind of repetitive. So the good thing about that is you break up your play sessions. You don't play for as long. You kind of want to have shorter play sessions and break up the game, and it ends up lasting longer. And I kind of appreciate that in a way, that you don't want to rush through everything, for better or worse. Other Amanita games, I really wanted to just like play through the whole game in like a weekend, you know. And some of these Amanita games are like a solid 10 hours or so. So, you know, you set aside 5 hours on a Saturday, 5 hours on a Sunday, and then boom, you've made your way through an Amanita game. And this one just didn't really, you didn't have that desire. I didn't have that desire to just keep going. I really wanted to break up the play sessions. Difficulty wise, none of these puzzles were very difficult. I mean, I got stuck a few times, you know, and had to scratch my head. But I got out of all of them pretty quickly. So there's not a ton of challenge here, and I guess I'm okay with that. And the reason I'm okay with that, unfortunately, is that I didn't really enjoy any of these puzzles, if I'm being totally honest. And again, man, does that suck to say. Man, does that suck to say. But I just didn't really find myself like wanting to play these puzzle platformy. I just don't. This studio's never done a game like this before, and you can just get better puzzle platform type games that are a little more maybe action oriented, that are just stronger games. I mean, like a game that comes to my mind is Inside. Inside is a billion times better than this game. Inside is an A+, but this game is not. So there's just better games to play in this genre. So it makes it really tough to recommend Creaks. What I will say is, if you have Apple Arcade, for example, and you have access to this game through Apple Arcade, then play it. Give it a shot. See what you think. Play through it a little bit. The atmosphere is amazing. That's what is so great about all these Amanita games, is no matter the gameplay, which is almost always really good, but no matter the gameplay, the atmosphere, the aura, the creepiness, the wonderful illustrative qualities of these games are just so great. And that's here. You get that here for sure. You get a really cool kind of story of being in this giant house and making your way through, and you kind of meet these like creepy bird characters, and you're kind of hiding from them at first, and then eventually they start to notice you a little bit, but they're friendly, or they're kind of unexpectedly, weirdly distant friendly. And you just kind of move along that trajectory of the game, and eventually more and more things happen. You learn more about what's happening. You learn more about the giant monster that's looming around, that's kind of destroying the place. And it's an interesting, fun story. So you get that as well. You get a really cool story, a cool narrative, and a cool atmosphere to backdrop that narrative. But the problem is, again, it's that gameplay, man. It's that gameplay. So I would recommend Creaks to the Amanita stans like myself. If you love this studio and you just want to see what's going on with them, I think this is worth your time. If you are not an Amanita stan, if you're maybe an Amanita noob, if you're interested in the way this game looks, then I would look elsewhere. I would try another game first. I would go with probably Machinarium, because it's like the one that has been ported everywhere. You can play that thing. You can play that game on literally anything. You can play it on your phone, your tablet, your computer, any console you got, you'll be able to find and play Machinarium. So play it wherever you can, and save this one for like later on down the list, because this is not the first one you want to start with. My favorite game of Amanita, like I said, Samorost 3. That game, amazing. That game's wonderful. So it is the epitome of this the possibilities of this kind of design and these kind of labor of love projects that this studio puts together. So yeah, some good, some bad. Ultimately, it sucks that the gameplay is what is just not quite as strong here, and it sucks that I just really found myself not really liking these puzzles, not really being excited for the next puzzle or the next room. Just walking into the room, taking a look at it, and just being like, oh, okay, fine, I'll keep going. And it's kind of a drag, and I played through the whole game though, so I liked it at least enough to finish it. So there's that. What else to say? What else to say about Creaks? I think I've mostly covered everything. The music's amazing, by the way. So pretty much everything is really cool, except for that gameplay. And I really shouldn't call it bad. It is not a bad game. It is not bad gameplay. It's just, you know, nothing is without context. It's so hard to review a game like this without looking back at their back catalog of their mainline entries and trying to size this up with them. It's just inevitable. You're going to do it when you do a review like this. So it's tough. It's tough for me to not. It's tough for me. I wish I could just, with a totally fresh set of eyes, review this game. Because honestly, I will say this: if you've never played an Amanita game, if you're not aware of that studio, and you played this, you'd probably be more impressed than I was, because I've got, you know, I had this game up on a pedestal. I had given, my hopes were up so high for this game that it was just going to be absolutely wonderful and wondrous, and it's just not. It just doesn't quite have that Amanita seal of approval for me. But lucky for us, many of their games do. I am not going to stop being interested in this studio and what they've got going on. The next Amanita project that comes out, I will be just as excited for, because I know what they can do. I know what they're capable of. Just a few short years ago, Samorost 3, a masterpiece. So hopefully, you know, it would actually be really cool to see a Machinarium 2 or a Samorost 4. Like, it would be so fun to see them revisit some of those games. I mean, especially a Machinarium 2. Like, that would be like a big money game, because Machinarium is just everywhere. You can go everywhere and find that game. But anyway, guys, I thought it was important to get on here to talk about, almost like an obligatory feeling, to talk about this game, because I am just so very invested in this studio and the work they do. And also, I thought it was a little weird that no one's talking about the game. So I'm trying to create a little bit of energy around this game, even though it's not my favorite and I don't love it. But again, the work that this team does is very important to me. So anyway, that is it for this video, guys. Thanks for checking me out, and that's about it. Take it easy.